Okay. We are good to go. Okay, October 29th, 2024.
No.
7:04.
Not 7:04. I'm going South Dakota tonight.
Highlands Reserve of Palm City Homeowners Association Board of Directors meeting. Call to order, roll call.
Tony Fody, treasurer.
Michael Coleman, secretary.
Michelle Lee Longerbeam, president.
Jill Watson, vice president.
Courtney Swiderski, McCarthy, manager. Okay, we're gonna go over the reports.
Okay, really quickly, on the treasurer side. On a cash position at the end of August, we had $95,000 in operating cash and importantly on the reserve side, $644,000 in the bank. Other assets, I won't go into the minutes you do, we have a lot to talk about today. We have prepaid insurance of 23, and on the accrual side, nothing stood out. We have 20 in accruals, 46,000 prepaid assessments folks have done, and the insurance payable on that loan, the insurance policy is about $21,000. On the income side, income expense for the month, we had a negative variance of 28, but a positive variance year to date of 23. So on as far as revenues go, revenue for the month was 139,000 versus a budget of 136. On the expense side, it was 167 versus a total budget of 123, 136. If you want to go down into the details, G&A administrative and office expenses had a negative variance of slightly of $6,300. Our insurance is up. Was going to be up significantly because we book our insurance policies in March. We didn't find out until March what the significant increase was going to be. So we're going to be over budget by that significantly. Contract services were slightly over budget there with a slight negative variance. That should work its way out. Through the balance of these things, clubhouse maintenance, landscape maintenance, repairs, the utilities, nothing really stood out. We should be balancing out. Some of them are a little bit ahead, some a little bit behind. We should be balancing out close to budget towards the end of the year. There are a couple of adjustments that need to be made. Things that were booked this year that should have been booked last year, and vice versa. So that, I think the utility expense booked last year should have booked this year. So once we pick that up, right now we have like a $43,000 positive variance that'll wind down once you reclassify. So short and sweet.
Question. We're looking at financials basically based on financials whoever provided them on August 31st, 2004. Why don't we have September 2024? 30 days ago.
Yeah, I think they just came in.
No, can I jump in? So our financials get released on the 30th of the month. Typically, it would be early meeting a little bit earlier in the month. This meeting was originally scheduled for October 8th, I think was the meeting date, a little bit earlier in the month. So it wouldn't be normally as far behind, so we don't meet typically so late in the month. This is just an odd meeting where we're meeting literally 2 days before our financials come out. So we're really far behind financials for this meeting. When we meet on November 5th and we give the budget or the financial update then we have the September financial and be a little bit more caught up. It just makes us appear more behind than we typically be.
So September, so here, November 30th, that's gonna be October 30th, you're saying?
Correct. Yeah, our financials get released on the 30th of every month, and that's just the date we have and just the way the meetings fell. I'm gonna just jump in if you don't mind real quick, Tony, because I'm gonna piggyback on yours because we're gonna be talking a lot tonight about financials and the budget. So I want to try to get through respectfully as quickly as possible. We're gonna have another full board meeting tonight, focus is gonna be mostly on the budget tonight, and we're gonna be talking so much about financials. That I was trying to get through everything as fast as possible report wise. So Tony kind of went through a very brief overview of it, but I can tell you, I've spent so much time this past month or so with Larry, with Michelle, with Tony, with everyone in my office, going through most of our month was spent on financials, looking over the old financials all the way back to current financials, making some adjustments to how we're coding things, fine tuning things, creating new categories for the new budget and moving things around. So August is one of our better financials, and the one that I'm actually more proud of, and September will only get better because we have made a ton of changes as we're rolling into this budget and just figuring out how we like to project things. So we've been working on that, we've been working on delinquencies, I got Michael on some of that, slowly charging through, trying to get ourselves caught up. Maintenance wise, obviously we were thrown off a little bit by the hurricane, so that created its own set of work, but it was good because we got to practice for all of our plans in place recently, practice our communication and get everything out, and luckily we were very much spared. Most of the damage was very minor landscaping stuff. CPM is still trying to catch up on those proposals and those work orders, so if you have something outstanding, I know it's hard, but please be patient. We were very lucky, we were not as hard hit as some of the other communities that they're trying to help, so they're trying to put staff where they can, get to everyone as quick as they can with some of the bigger trees and bigger things being done first. We've had electricians out here this past week, you may have noticed over holiday lights are on, and they shouldn't be, because they're plugging them into tests. They will be here for one more day this week to get all of our, entrances up and running. I believe I have to go through and test, when I left the other day, he was working on this entrance over here, and he had key gear left, and he was testing as he was going, so we're well on our way to getting our electric up and running finally, so we can have a good holiday light season, fingers crossed. We have our mulch vendors came back and finally finished this Monday. They had to do some stuff on Silverwood, they had to do the cul-de-sac down there, the beds, at that very end entrance, there's some beds across from Berry, a little bit, you may not have even noticed it on the High Meadow berm all the way north. And then they had to refresh this clubhouse entrance, because just the timing of when they put the mulch down, and when we got all that rain, it washed out the color, because it hadn't had time to set. So they did honor that and come back and put some more mulch down there. We are going to be hard launching, I'm sorry, Danny, I was supposed to do it today for you, but we're gonna be launching our ad for if residents wanna get a group deal. They are gonna be offering a group deal for our residents, I believe it's $120 a home, and that would do all the beds at your home. So we're gonna be launching that soon and asking for input on what color mulch you would like to have.
You say 125.
120, yeah, and it's all of your beds, front and back. Yeah, I don't think you guys will be able to do it yourself cheaper, or have another people come in. Yeah, so that'll be going up tomorrow for everyone, so keep an eye on that. We've had, Sullivan Electric was out a lot this past month, as you guys know, we didn't have irrigation for at least it seemed like a month, because, one of the Rainbird pieces of processor had gone down. So at the last meeting, we approved a proposal for the processor that we need replacing. They tried twice, it didn't work, they were about to try a third time, and it just wasn't gonna work, that processor wasn't gonna work our system. And so they had to take that part back and give us a different part, we had a different processor we ended up having to use, so you'll see a ratification for that on tonight's agenda. It was a piece that we had to put in, a workaround around Rainbird system, so that we get our pumps up and running, so they have been up and running, although with it being so rainy, you may not have seen it on a ton, I think it's only been on maybe a few days. Here and there, just because we've had great delays with all the rain we've had. George assessed one of the footbridges in the preserve before he went on vacation and noticed it was starting to broad out, it was getting really bad, so we started replacing that, you guys may have seen pictures in the weekly. So we replaced about half that footbridge, and then we'll be replacing the other half of it when he returns from vacation. I'm not gonna read through some of the smaller things that you guys see in the weekly, like the locks being put on, the kitchen cabinets and those sorts of things. I think I'm gonna leave it at that, other than just keep an eye out for more details from social committee, because they are gonna be working on launching something for November. I hope you don't know, we haven't launched yet, but we're gonna be working on a movie night, food truck night in November, so keep an eye out for that, and the holiday entertainment stuff is gonna be coming out soon as well.
Thank you for it. Okay, we're gonna go out of order before we do the budget presentation, under new business. We're gonna look at ratification of this Sullivan Electric quote.
So I talked about it a little bit already in my manager's report. We had originally approved a different quote. You guys will have both versions of the proposal in there. The first one didn't work. They thought maybe it was an issue with the part. It got damaged in shipping. They sent us another one. That still didn't work. We had Rainbird engineers on the phone with Sullivan as they were working. They could not figure out because it should be compatible with their system. It should have worked by all standards. It should have worked and it just wasn't. So on their third attempt, they were gonna try to send it again in special bag. We realized it just wasn't going to work for some reason or another. It just was not working with their system, even though it should have been compatible. And so Sullivan was able to suggest another type of processor to use on our system instead. And that was the only way to get our pumps back up and running.
So the Sullivan is for the pumps.
Yeah.
These bills are for the pumps. So which one are we looking at? We got an 822, a 10.3, and 10.3.
So, yeah, it's the 10.3, the latest one.
So we're looking at 10.3,
Correct.
$6,300. As opposed to $4,400.
Mhm. Yeah, it is the only way to get our pumps back up and running.
Plenty of money now.
Yeah,
This money, this money for work they've done, or
Yep.
work is supposed to be done.
Nope, done, they're up and running now.
Done.
We are just ratifying.
Motion to ratify Sullivan quote 3,607 on 10.3, 2024.
I will motion to approve the updated quote. No second,
Second,
all in favor?
Do you wanna hand it over to Larry?
we got to find the management first for road and budget presentation.
Like the presentation.
Michael, tell me you guys have a preference. Who goes first? Budget, all right, okay.
All right, the finance committee has worked very hard on putting this presentation together. We asked to let Larry present it. And then he's gonna turn it over to the board for our input and, any questions and stuff. So if we can hold the questions until the end, it'll make the presentation go much smoother, so, please.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get one of the extra. Says.
Okay, my name is Larry Wilson, I'm the chairman of the finance committee, I want to acknowledge some people that are on the committee, Brian Baldwin, myself, Don Levin, Tony Levianco, who is going to be here and had some family, lesson to family emergency, and the gentleman to my left, and my neighbor, Mr. Zorik, who I want to call for special attention to, because he sat a long time here in the community, was a prior treasurer, and he's just been a wealth of good information as we try to dig through and understand what was going on. So when we talk about the process, first, we started out with a budget worksheet that was provided by Corey in an Excel format. I don't know if it was Cass's format or the prior format that we used, but it was good. And she originally, she put in all the contract information, some starting numbers, and we started to pare it down. We updated it based upon 2025 reserve study, which we went over at the last board meeting. We got input from the committee, so we broke it out into tabs. Danny owned at least one to maybe two tabs. We broke it by, insurance and Comcast, and everything else, and all that stuff feeds into the master sheet. And then we went over a review of contracts, old financials to see what's going on, and then 2024 year-to-date financials to put all this together. So it is a first draft, and we've been through many drafts, but it's the first time we're drafting it, presenting it. It is conservative. So this is, we've made little to no efforts other than bringing the reserve down to try to reduce spending. You might say, well, why is that? Well, what we want to do is let the board makes those decisions. That's not really our job. There are things that we went back and forth on and said, hey, we think we can do a little better there, where, you know, but this is really, I would consider this kind of an all-in, fully funded budget, and then we leave it up to the board, to feedback to the community to make the tough decisions on what you want to cut, what you want to increase, and where you want to cut. So what it is not final, and it's not perfect. So if you find a mistake, you know, yay to you, right? Tell us, we'll fix it. We think it's pretty good, but when I'm saying it's not final or perfect, there's gonna be, you may find some errors, or you may be shocked by what you see. I don't know. But we have, that's the first presentation, and then the board can do what they want. And this, I had not intended to go through a repeat of the reserve study discussion. That was at last meeting. We can answer a few questions along the way, but I would refer to you. Did we record that, you know?
Yes, but it got a little bit cropped down, if it's not part of the period.
Well, I'm happy to answer questions, but I don't want to take up time here because I see a lot of the same patients who are in the reserve study, so I don't intend to go deeply into that. Things to note. So these are just a few things we'll cover more as we go to the budget. It contemplates a reserve contribution that matches that of the latest reserve study that was issued October 24th of 2024. So what we, and it's $285,000, which is a year, which is a 185% increase over what we have been doing traditionally over the past several years of $100,000. We were able to find 4 years, I think we did 100,000, maybe it's 3, and then we're not really sure how much we put it. Originally, we started out at 460. Then at the reserve study meeting, we brought it down to 362. And this is all just through work and looking at, okay, can we push off some things? A lot of it was dealing with roads and where we thought that would come in, what would be reasonable between the quote we got and what the reserve study company recommended. I would like to point out that inflation is not just something that happens to other HOAs. Inflation's happened to us, and inflation numbers have happened in years that we held to use flat. So I'm not necessarily, that's not necessarily a leading comment, but inflation happens, and we need to be aware of that every single year. Once we get into a deflationary environment, then that's a whole different kind of thing. Excuse me?
Let's not go there.
Yeah, let's not go there. So it does include a contracted increase in the Comcast cable internet. It does appear that the 2024 budget seems to have over budgeted this item. And I am going to make a couple comments on the 2024 budget. This is not to throw stones at anybody. Facts are facts. And that's why I like math. Stuff a lot. So what we did is we took the bills. We looked at what they were. We multiplied by 12 because they were pretty consistent. It also does include that there's only 319 homes currently. So I added in one additional home. It doesn't add a lot, but we tried to take into account that last thing. I thought everybody else was just billing for 320. It also includes an agreed to, and it's already been agreed to, increase in landscaping costs above the original contract. We talked about that last time. You will see on the budget that, man, this comment is actually not accurate. I should have changed it based on something Larry helped me find the other day. It looks like Group B is getting screwed in the increase, and I will show you why it looks that way, and you're not. Okay. It does include we mentioned earlier that we underestimated insurance. So what we did this year was took the 2024 budget and increased insurance costs by 20%. We know, we'll see what happens, but at least it gets us closer to the thing. We did also we discovered we financed insurance in 2024, which is financing an operating expense. I'm not going to question that decision because maybe it was the right decision at the time, but your finance committee is recommending that we not finance any operational expenses going forward. We should just pay for them as we go. And this budget reflects that view. We just thought paying 13% for operational items seems tense. And then I also want to point out the initial numbers on the present of Castle's management contract with the related proposal that includes a part-time administrative assistant at half time. So those numbers are included in the initial budget. Okay, so let's go over and I'm going to show this. We did all our work in a Google spreadsheet. And it's live. This is the live version, so if we make it, it's not PDF, so if we wanna make a change as we go, we can make a change, and we can see exactly how it reflects throughout the numbers. So I'm gonna go down and hit some items. I would, as Michelle said earlier, if the board has questions, please stop along the way and do that. We'd like everybody in the community to just kind of hold your questions at the end, maybe we'll get to them. If not, then we'll open the floor afterwards. So, right now, we're showing that the membership dues are increasing overall 10.63%. And that number is actually derived, so we take what we're gonna put in reserves, our other income sources, we figure out the expenses, and then we just reverse it and come up with what the membership dues should be to include those things. Gate clicker income, I'm just gonna touch upon a couple things. Gate clicker income is small, it's real, but it's small. If we decide to replace our security system, we probably don't get that income, or we may get it in a different way. So there's a few items on here. If we decide in 2025 to replace security system, that's gonna be an issue. We didn't put anything for late fees because it doesn't appear to be ever collect them, so we shouldn't buy first. Cable TV income, that was an interesting thing because in the past budget or the past financials, we apparently took it all in one shot, and over a 64-month contract, you should take it 1 month at a time. So that reflects $7,476 every month over 64 months. It might not match the financials exactly. We're still trying to get that nailed down for 2025 and on forward. We should take that revenue that way. Capital contributions I have discussed on there as a con. Can everybody see this? I cannot.
No.
Oh. Okay, I'm glad. Thank you all for telling me that you can't send budget. Somebody shut up. Now do you see budget? Now, this is what I've been talking about. Okay, sorry about that. Can everybody, my question is, can everybody see that reasonably well? Okay. So I'm down at, anything, now that you see it, anything I need to go back over? I think that most of that was pretty self-explanatory, we didn't talk about it sooner. Okay.
We'll talk about the capital.
I was just getting there. So capital contributions is the money that a new homeowner spends when they move into the community, and I think by law, it's 3 times the monthly expense for that home. In the past, in 2024, we have a budget of 28.5, but on our financials, for some reason, we're reflecting 0. And I thought, well, that can't be, we definitely sold homes. And so I forgot to go look, but the number is like 9,000, 12,000, below budget, but it's on the, it's going to the balance sheet. It's not going to the income statement. Eric, the accountant at Castle explained it. I didn't fully understand his explanation. So we decided we put in a little bit of money there around it, but we're not sure if that money should go to the reserve fund. Should it go to a special reserve fund where we, if we decided we're going to do a basketball court that wasn't anything, we collect that money and do it. Is it a rainy day fund? But right now it's not being reflected on the financials. So we need to, as a board, I guess, figure out where does that income go. If it's on the income statement, great, then we'll put it in the budget. Not on the income statement, we shouldn't put it in the budget. So
We are at least
So
receiving
it's
it.
currently.
we are receiving it.
Reflected in the
It's in the
operating
balance.
account?
Yeah, so it's in the balance sheet now, because that's what we've been doing before, and we had switched it in 2024 to use as income to help lower the fees. So he could do it first of September and put it all back in, so it shows up on our financials, and he didn't wanna do that, and we didn't wanna say, yes, go ahead and fix it until we confirm that's what we should do for 2024, because that's what we budgeted. We budgeted to help lower the assessment amount.
It is called capital contributions. The name is somewhat leading. You can decide where you want to put it, but we have to stay consistent. It's gonna go on budget, it should show up in the P&L. If it's not gonna go on the budget, then we should not budget for it. If we're not gonna put it on the P&L, we shouldn't put it in the budget.
Well, you're saying it's currently on the balance sheet. Where is it currently on the balance sheet?
Under capital reserve, I don't have it in front of me, but
I did, there should be a
Reserve
line.
stat, is it the reserve cash, the South State Capital 6587?
Yes.
so it's like $6,000-$8,000 somewhere in there that we receive. That's a hard number to budget for because it depends upon what we sell. So how much do we want to plan to budget anything else, but it is a kind of nebulous income source. So I would say,
Hang on for a second, Larry. So how does that money get into that account if we use Alliance
for Castle, is there a wire transfer happening, or how is that money getting into
Yeah,
that
so-
account?
When home office, they get all the closing checks, they're gonna deposit it and then just make that transfer over, or deposit into the South State account.
So if it says that in that account, 6587, we have $9,688, that meant last year we had nothing in it, it was zero. So therefore, where is the $9,000 to $12,000?
This is not a question that I am prepared to answer, and I don't think it's my place to answer it.
So,
I don't look at the financials,
Maybe someone.
I've only started looking at the financials recently.
yeah, it rolled, I think it's rolled back, I'm trying to remember when we were looking at it.
That would mean January 1st of this year, they took every dime out of that account and put it in operating or in reserve? I don't know.
No, it's up in this one, you see our total reserve funds on page 2. And it's got capital contributions, so it's running total.
Okay. Where is it in page 2?
It's towards the bottom, see where it says, yep,
Or if that's the case, in the capital contributions, we have $111,000.
yeah, it's the running total of all the capital contributions, and that's when you get beauty, because typically that's what we've done, and so you keep track of all the, but last year was a change, when we put it into the operating to help reduce the fees. And so before we changed it back, we wanted to ask me and Larry, but we wanted to ask before we do anything, but we did budget for it to go into operating in 2024 to help offset.
But it doesn't necessarily mean we have to.
We don't have to, no.
But where's the physical cash though, that $111,000?
Right,
Because it's not reflected in any of these bank accounts.
and it's more than our operational budget at this point. But that doesn't make sense to me.
What does that mean? Our
It's-
operational budget is like,
I'm looking at the assets, our total assets is $94,000.
Oh, it's more than that.
It's sitting in that reserve cash line. It goes into that total of that 644.
Well, that's only 26.
So that $111,000 less than 9,600 is sitting in our South State Reserve account ending in 3645.
Yes. That's a total over time, so stuff will have been spent from reserve, it all goes into that pool, but we still are reflecting what we had taken in.
How do we request the journal entries for showing the bank transfers?
I can show you the journal entries if you wanna go and check out with me one day. I can't go back before Castle was here, but I can show you anything from us on.
So the capital contributions of $111,590 is accumulation over a period of time. And it's put in, even though it's not this year, it's in the year before, untouched and left there in the balance sheet.
And it's not accrued, it's
It's our
already
account.
600,000, correct? It's not part of this 600.
I think your numbers negated.
Is that part of your 600,000?
You're saying it's included in the
600,000 of what?
Of the reserve.
I think it's
I don't think it is.
Can't be, because.
I don't think it
it's the balance sheet.
Should be there.
That's what I'm saying.
including $817,000,
Correct.
which I don't know where they get it.
I will tell you, we could drill on this for a long time, I think we could better off taking this offline and trying to figure out what that is. I talked to Eric and I didn't follow it. My background is not accounting, and maybe I would. But I would not assume that because that number says 111, that we have that cash spent. I'm not saying that there's any reason that, we probably would move in and out of time and spending long extra.
But that's not operational money, that's capital contribution money,
Right.
and it's being used as operational.
It's unclear.
That's right.
I think it's unclear. Okay, you ready for me to?
This,
I said, first of all, that's messed up. Period.
So one of the decisions that we were gonna need before we present. What do we want to do with capital contribution in, is it on the budget and PLM or not? So we've got a short period of time to figure all that out. Miscellaneous income and registration fees, what is that item? Because I still don't really understand
So
what that is.
basically application fees, so tenants, owners, the application fee that we charge.
Okay, it was negligible this year, so we just didn't assume that we should lie and pretend that there's no money there where there's not, so we just dropped it and it should be what else. And then there's this thing called prior year surplus, and we are not really convinced we had a good budgeting process, and financial still have some issues we're trying to work through. So we said we should not include prior year surplus as income. It's a bonus, great. If we say, hey, it looks like we're gonna have an extra 20,000, but remember, we're 2 months in arrears on our financials, and that's by contract, that's once. It's weird to me, because I'm used to getting in business, my financials 5 days after the end of the month. But we're really running about 30 days by normal, and then it's, we get them that next 30 days. So we have to decide what we want to do in terms of, we might have some excess money, but we set fair what we want to do with it, but we thought it would be better not put on the budget and not assume that we have it. Okay, so we'll keep going down. We raised office expenses a little bit, about a few thousand. It's percentage wise, it's big. It also includes clicker expense, which is offset by the clicker income above. That's another thing that would be impacted if you go to a different security system. County audits, that should be reasonable to get through. We're just about done with the 2022 audit. Then they have to do the 2023, and then we'll be back on track. Okay, so we added an emergency disaster fund at the request of Michelle. We started it out at $3 a home per month, and that really is just in case. So Michelle, you want to talk about why you wanted that particular item added?
So, if we have like damage with a hurricane, if we have with pandemic and different things that are going on, it's good practice to have an emergency fund that we can go to and use. We were very lucky this time where we had minimal damage, but it's good to have that for any type of major, emergency of any kind, and not to, keep it down to a specific.
Courtney, what's our deductible in our peril insurance?
For name storm or so.
Property insurance, what's our deductible?
I think there's two, is what she's saying.
Yeah,
One if there's a name storm. I
Yeah,
think there's one if there's a name storm, and there's one if there's not.
yeah, they're different. So his name storm, it's a percentage. I wanna say our property is 5,000, but please don't quote me on that, because you're catching me off guard. For per incident, and then the name storm is gonna be a percentage, I wanna say it's.
So this emergency disaster fund really would cover things not covered by the insurance because of the deductible.
This is something we have to build up with time. So the good thing about a disaster fund is you can let it build up. So if we don't use it, the board, if we have a surplus, can vote to roll that over, and you can create a liability line item and let it build up too. So we can keep building that up year after year to get us to a point where it would make a difference. We were very lucky that we only had a few trees down. The trees on Silver Wolf were $1,200 for the crepe myrtles and like $450 for the big tree. We were very lucky that we didn't have a lot of common area trees go down, but we could have had them if the tornadoes had gone through here. So we should start building something up, and you can just let it build until we get to a point that we're comfortable with what we have. We don't have to start huge, but just a little bit will help.
Okay, I did realize that since this wasn't on the screen at the time, I wanted you to actually see that this is the reserve that the reserve study is contemplating fully funded. It's $285,000. Last year it was $100,000, so it's went up $185, 185%, and it's $74 per home. Is that the contribution to the saving, basically the savings account of the association? That number can be reduced. That comes with risks, but that's what we're recommending. Okay, so I just wanted you to see it since it wasn't on the screen. Community staffing, this, as I mentioned, this is the castle number. The current proposal includes Courtney and George and an additional part-time person that they're contemplating having in the budget this year. So that would mean that number is going to go up 18.2%, 02%. And that does not include the castle management fee. That's just the staffing, healthcare, all that kind of stuff. I mentioned insurance earlier. This number is, I actually have some hidden columns here that are talking about what the running total is today for the budget. I think it just confuses it. I can open that up at some point so you can see it. I'd rather go through it and then open it up if we need to talk about it, but we talked, the insurance number was under budget. So we took the actual number minus the financing charge plus 20%, and that's where you get $57,000. So the the raise of 78% sounds gigantically high, but we under budgeted last year, so that makes it. Okay. Management service.
Just a moment, maybe Cory can answer this. We got called on higher.
That's gonna be really hard.
I'm sure.
Sorry. Do we know what's?
Yeah, try to get it right.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, sorry, Michael.
Well, this year there was an increase, and I think because we got into insurance, it was too late before we can get other quotes. I think that's what I remember. So this new figure is based upon the figure that we are spending this year, without looking at other quotes. That could be lower.
So I'm gonna tell you, it's probably not gonna be lower, significantly lower.
I think
Because
we're
I started-
bound to get bids anyways, I'm just saying.
No, we are, and so our stuff renews in March, we're right at the time that we actively start renewing now. But I've started to talk to some people like Andrew Highway. What you're looking for when you're shopping around is better communication, but they're all shopping very similar markets. There's not a lot of markets that are shopping, you're gonna get similar pricing.
But Mike, to directly answer your question, so what we spent on the policy this year rolls over in March or May, whatever it was. Minus the finance charge of 13%, we're recommending we don't finance it,
Right.
and then add 20% to that. That's how we arrived at 57.
Can you repeat what our policy months are? Like what's the
It's
chart?
March or May, and I just don't remember, but I wish it was on a calendar year, but right now it's not. Maybe we can figure out a way to negotiate that, so we get to do a 14-month or 15-month term next time and get it back in line with the calendar year, and I think that would make a lot of sense. Okay, the next line is, this is Castle's management fee. They have built in a 3% increase, and that comes right off their last proposal. Okay, lawn maintenance, so all the stuff related to lawn maintenance, and not specifically not fertilization and weed control, that can stay flat. But to briefly cover what we went over last time, our landscape vendor came to us and said, hey, we're losing money on your property. We're basically paying you for the right to cut your grass. So they said, if we can't get an increase in the service fee, we're gonna give you 60-day notice, and then you're gonna have to find it. So we were, in general, we were pretty happy with what they were doing. We worked with them on the number to bring it down, and that brought it from about 3% increase to about 8-something percent, 8.5%. So those numbers are reflected in here. They also get another increase in September or October. I think it's October. For 3.5% going out. But we did say to them, hey, if we do this time, you're not gonna come to us in 4 months and say, hey, I'm still, so that, all of these numbers, that's already been approved, and these numbers reflect the cost of the 2025, including the new increase in October, November. So that's what you're seeing there in that 8.27 increase, and it's partially because it's most of the year. Fertilization, landscape, we I believe stay exactly the same. Lake maintenance, I'm just gonna hit stuff preserve maintenance has gone down. We have a contract for that. We've done a good job getting that in line, and now it's gonna become a lot more reasonable. I think it was 100 grand the year before, now 67, now 33. So I would not expect it to keep going down, but we're at least kind of a flat area that we can work with. Pressure cleaning, Michael pointed out yesterday that this doubled. Courtney, you want to explain why the contract is now twice?
Yeah, so we had budgeted based on previous costs that we had expected, we'd hope to negotiate similar rates with the same vendor. His costs went way up. We looked at switching vendors, but he wasn't the only one that was at that rate. He was actually still the lowest, so we had been getting a steal of a deal for a long time, and we realized we couldn't keep up at that price. And that just is what we bid it out to multiple vendors, at least 3 other vendors, and they all came in higher than what Magic Bubbles is coming in at.
So anyways, that jumped to 100%. Security cameras is about the same. The reason it's highlighted is because if we decide to spend money that we've contemplated in the reserve study and get a new security system, that number will change and will go down significantly. So we'll spend a lot of money to get a new system, have cameras that actually work, have gates that usually work, but we will save money on that. We just don't know what it is because we haven't signed a new contract. So that's a place that will go in that list in the budget, depending on what we decide we're gonna do.
Also, annual cost on servicing the security system.
Yeah, there will be some, that's really the annual cost. They have, I think we'll have to rename the account at that point to whatever the service was. we expect that to come down. Is there anything else of significance? No, so those are pretty, I mean, they're going up, down a little bit, but nothing of significance. I was going through this yesterday, and the reason I highlighted this is I just wonder if $1,100 is sufficient for covering our HVAC systems. We have, what, 3 or 4 of them on top of the building. We might want to increase that a little bit, but I just highlighted it mostly for my application. Okay, social events and services. Danny and his committee did a really good job. They own this social events tab at the bottom. They really filled it out, got a lot of data. They are asking for $6,000, but they'd like $10,000. That's a bigger jump than the $2,500 we had budgeted last year. But I think we've already spent more, right? Than $2,500. And I think if we can get some of these events to pay for themselves, or maybe pay a little bit more. But going in line, we want to kind of a fully loaded budget. Michelle asked me to put the $10,000 in there. That's a place we can adjust if we need to. Okay, continue to go down. None of that is significantly different. Cable and internet, you'll notice that came down a little bit. That's just making sure we got the right numbers. You know, there was just an error in the budget process last year. We under budgeted the common area phone, TV, internet. So that's this TV, the 2 in the gym, the 1 in Courtney's office, the Wi-Fi internet around all the gates. All of that stuff is costing us about $500 a month. And that's contracted, that includes the 4%. So it just, I don't know why we had $2,000 in the budget last year, but we tried to make it accurate.
Well, I think some of it was combined up above.
Yeah, the budget, so when I got home to the financials, I started looking at the numbers, they were way, way off. And I think some of the items on cable have been miscategorized between this and the community cable, and the individual houses cable. There was something that was in arrears in January that showed up in December, so that was just a little weird to deal with that. But I think those numbers should be accurate based upon the bills that we're seeing right now. Can you hold that until the end?
You passed the pool spa fountain that went up to $4,000. I don't know what that is.
Where's the fountain?
Ma'am, can we hold your questions to the end?
Yeah, so let's,
I want.
okay.
I would like that.
Okay, this is traditionally we didn't rename any of the accounts, and so, I don't know why we have pool in there, but what is covered on that?
It's just cool. Yeah, we gotta just take out that swap out and we just gotta get that out of there.
So that's repair and maintenance
repair
stuff.
and
So we have
maintenance.
regular recurring stuff, and then if something breaks, we got money in there. And I think based upon, I have to go unhide these columns, I don't quite want to do that to see what the budget is, or what the current spending has been.
What's that? So the pool, so it was 2,000 and then 4,000.
Yeah, we bumped it up. We did have some little repairs this past year, but things like the pumps, I mean, we're not budgeting enough for budgeting 2,000. Because things like the pumps, they only have a 1-year warranty on them. The chemical line feeders, if we don't spend it on repairs, what we need to worry about doing is replacing the chemical tubs, because we're using garbage cans right now. And so I would like to bump it up so we have the money, if we need to repair it, if not, we can start replacing some of the infrastructure that's back there and just make it a little bit more appropriate.
And keep in mind that this is budget, right? So if we say we only need 1,000, you know, and we're gonna start accumulating some operating profit that we can offset expenses later. But what we're trying to do is do our best guess so that we're not undershooting it and trying to figure out where we get the money to. Okay, so this is the reserve transfer. This is the same number as we used above as income is the expense. It will go out to the reserves and go into our savings account. Okay, landscape maintenance. I wanted to, this includes all of the upgrades of landscaping that the renegotiated fees. The reason I highlighted this one is if you notice, if you're in Group B, it appears that you went up 21.8%. And everybody else went up 9.62%. And it took me a little while and a lot of ribbing from Larry to say, okay, why is that? Well, what I went to find and finally discovered was that in last year's budget, that number the number 32,400 really should have been 3,600. And so, or 36,000, excuse me. So if I change that to 36,000, it falls in line at 9.2% like everything else. So how that number got in the budget last year, I don't know. Danny asked me an interesting, or somebody asked me an interesting, maybe it's Michael. said, well, does that mean that the group B people were getting subsidized last year? And I went back and checked, so they actually computed everything based on 36, but the budget number was 32.4. So it just was a mistake, not a big deal. I just don't want anybody to think that that's, group B people are getting screwed any more than anyone else. Those numbers just come right out of the contract with CPM. So here's the data on the fully funded budget. Okay, so I'll let you just kind of absorb that. What I did presented this a little bit differently this year. And because the reserve is a big deal, and I presented the first line, let's say traditional. So the monthly common assessment is what part of your dues go toward. This will all be available too. So we'll post this in PDF form after the meeting. So the monthly common assessment is what part of your dues go to common area maintenance. The monthly reserve contribution is what part of your dues go toward the reserves, which really is just staying in savings, and some of it we'll spend on keeping the community up. But most of the time, it's money that we won't have to spend later because we're saving it. And then the monthly landscape assessment is based purely upon your property size and what group that you're in. So the numbers, and don't shoot the messenger, but on the fully funded budget with the reserve, based on what we talked about last time, traditional homes are going up 22% overall, Group A 18.7, Group B 22.27, and Group C 17.15. And the big reason of that is that 185% jump, going from 2604 to an increase to 7402 in the case of traditional. What we're basically saying is an additional $48.18 from the traditional homes is, and I use any of these examples, it's the same numbers for each, is going to go toward our savings account. It turns out to be $26.04 per 100,000. So if we were going to say, instead of putting the $100,000 in, we're going to put in $200,000 instead of 285, then it's 5208 is what that part of it is going to be an additional 2604. You notice that there is an increase in operating. Oh, so there's 11.21 for all programs, and that's the additional landscape, the reserve, the emergency fund, all of those things that went up in value because of insurance and inflation. That's the things that you're seeing there. The big the monthly reserve is a big chunk of that. In fact, for everyone, that's the largest increase category. I would argue, as I argued last time, is in my opinion, I think the opinion of the committee, we underfunded our reserve for a long time, so we got to put that money in our pocket. Now it's time to start funding that thing. The board has vast leeway to adjust that number to whatever we want, but we've got a very complicated spreadsheet provided to us by the reserve study firm. And you can see, as you change those numbers, how over time, whether you have the money to pay the things you need, or you don't have the money to pay for what you need. So that's what I've got. So I guess I wanted to ask the board if you had any questions. If not, then we can open it up to comments and questions from the group. I can also open up the 3 columns there to talk about what we've spent prorated. It's a little confusing, but it's fit really nice and screen this way, but I can open those up and you can see kind of what we've been spending compared to whatever we talk about all that. So, board, any questions?
Yes. Can you go back up to the contract services increase under contract?
Yes.
Down a little bit, please. I'm trying to find the capital. I thought
Yes,
the
we have in terms
management-
of contract with this line right here.
Yeah, so I'm seeing an increase of 2.97%. Was that reflected in our contract? Because I thought it was a 4% increase.
I took those numbers straight off the last proposal.
Okay, so then it's not the 4% increase that was in the original. It would be based off the new contract.
And if that's wrong, we need to figure that out. I don't know if I actually got I think I did get the proposal, so those numbers should be right. We can check them. I asked I asked the people who were doing those committees to validate these numbers, but, you know, we can check and find that that's off, but I believe that's the number that was in the last.
Well, the discrepancy could be that the 4% is what was negotiated as the annual increases based on the original contract with capital, but if we have the new proposal, this may be a different number.
I believe that's the correct number, but, we can check it
A
out.
little bit for fun.
Can you discuss, and, I apologize, Danny, I have not attended a single landscape committee meeting this year. But the preserve maintenance, can you just give 30 seconds on the major decrease? I understand that we did a ton of work, but.
So the initial attack at our preserve to clean up with it, you know, because it's so behind, we weren't actually doing maintenance, preservation of it. That was the heavy lift. So up front, they had to go in and really take care of a whole bunch. Now that it's been taken care of, we can coast on maintenance mode for a while. That's the difference.
Okay, so you guys met with, Southern Florida Water Management folks and Martin County folks, and they're, what we have here as far as maintenance work, they've blessed as.
That's proposed by our next standard, that number. So the actual confirmation that we're in compliance is kind of in progress still, right?
Yeah, so I did jump in. Yeah, so they came out that week of Milton, Kayla from South Florida Water Management and Lindsay from the county. They came in and they inspected everything except for the, basically Silver Wolf area, some areas back there where it was way too wet, they couldn't get into some areas. And they said we were in compliance all the way up till there, they have to do one more visit to just check those areas, but based on what they were seeing in those areas that they had inspected, they inspected most of the community at that point, we were in really, really good shape. And, you know, they congratulated us and thanked us for all the work that we've done, so they're seeing good things in there, up until this point, it's just a small area that we have left to check, just because they couldn't get to it. So now it's drawing out, we're just waiting for, our vendor Drew, and then those two get their schedules together, so they come back out. Unfortunately, the committee wasn't able to be there on that inspection, because it was pouring rain, and they were probably out in meters that day. But we will be there on the next inspection, hopefully the weather's a lot nicer, it's drier, and we can actually get back there.
So how do we confirm that what we've budgeted, like what our vendor has proposed as sufficient is gonna be good by the county, so that we're not caught off guard?
So we actually asked them that when we were actually going through all the contracts and we were vetting all the vendors. She can't officially vet a contract, or she can't tell us, oh yes, this will be what you need. She can't tell us one way or another. She can just say we have to do maintenance and come out and do the inspections and make sure that we're in compliance. But she did have a lot of good things to say about Caleb, Drew, and Caleb also had worked with Drew a lot, and so that was where we had that confidence to go with Drew initially. Because they work very well together, and we're seeing it as they're doing the inspections, because they have been in touch with Lindy and Caleb the whole step of the way as they're doing the cleanup the whole time. So again, they can't officially say, yes, this is what you need in your contract. We did ask them, you know, their language, is there something we're forgetting? They're not allowed to officially do it. Unofficially, they said that he's very good to work with. They work with him in a lot of other areas. They don't have compliance issues.
Okay. I'm just gonna keep going until someone tells me to stop. I don't see a tab on here for office expense. What could we possibly be spending $10,000 on for postage and mailing?
I guess the court would be better to be able to answer that.
Yeah, office expense is a very big catch-all account, to be quite honest with you. So there's things like, if we have to replace the pads on the AED, we got them donated, we had to do maintenance and replace the pads. We bought like a first aid cabinet, it doesn't really fall under maintenance, so things like that fall under there. We have all the mailing expenses, which is a lot higher than you'd expect to have happen, and especially this year. We had budget mailing, we had, the ARC, so we've had more mailings, and probably we can expect to be communicating more, and we just wanna make sure we're appropriately funding that. So that's why we had a higher expense in this year, but there's other things that fall into it, so, basically, it's a big catch all that. That's all. I can give you guys a breakdown. I'll give you a general ledger so you can see. I think I might have shared it with you early on some of those things, maybe not every single detail, but it's the catch-all thing. For anything we order, not just office supplies, but we got waters for the board meetings. It's just kind of our catch-all. Is the best way I can describe that. It doesn't quite fit into maintenance or to janitorial supplies. This is where that's at.
Okay, if you can send us the GL for year to date, because 10 grand is just, that's a lot of money.
I think there was a new computer and a new monitor in there too.
Yes, I did finally get an office computer.
Holiday planning. Am I the only one who thinks it's horrifying? Like, what? Why are we spending that for 30 days of lights? Like,
But let's just try to, let's get all the board questions out of the way. I appreciate you all kind of trying to keep this under control. And then we'll open it up.
So for an emergency disaster fund, why would that be put under G&A expense versus under revenue such as our, like our reserves? fund?
Because Michelle told me one day we were about to enter a meeting and I just threw it out there, so we didn't. So, you know, we can put it, we can do it however we want, right? But I want to capture the extent. We can blame that on me.
Capture the expense to the rest, okay. Okay, and then capital contribution, I guess we just need to take that offline.
What's that line for part-time capital item?
Where is it?
Is it under the community
It's
staff?
under community staffing.
Uh,
There's a whole tab.
It's combined.
Just a
It's all-
suggestion, do you guys wanna save that when we have the management discussion, because that will vastly change that line anyway.
Yeah, I'm not, we'll get into that later. I'm not gonna show that tab, but I can change the numbers, to take that person out pretty easily. So, yeah, we'll talk about those two items later. Other questions?
Not for me.
And you guys, the board can interject, I just want to give you guys an opportunity to get all your stuff out of the way and then. Where we want to do, okay,
Yeah,
I have one more.
Yeah.
You mentioned there's nothing under late fees, so why are we not collecting any late fees for rears?
so late fees was a item that I had a real hard time on with financial, because I've never been involved in something that has a negative income. I mean, maybe I'm lucky, but no negative income, and I don't think it's possible really unless you reverse stuff. So what they have apparently done is refunded a bunch of late fees in 2024 for things that had happened in prior years. But they should have actually moved that to AR and offset AR. Again, you might give me my limitations of the town, right? The P&L should reflect the state of the business in any particular period. And I'm like, how can we have negative $5,000 late fees? That doesn't reflect, we should say, hey, we issued $5,000 late fees, but we decided to refund them for whatever reason, and so now it's zero. I should be able to see that. I don't see last year's stuff on this year's financials. So because that was that way, and it seemed like we just never collected them, I think part of it was, Courtney probably,
Yeah,
hold
so,
on one second, Courtney can probably correct me in a second, but it appeared that a lot of those late fees were things that happened in the switchover. People appeared to be late, but they really weren't really. We just got, you know, so somehow we offset all that. But I don't know count an income source. It's not an income source that we don't really do, and it should actually reflect. So,
yeah, we did a ton, especially at the beginning of the year, from all the turnover, because my instructions might come in, if it was from turnover, if there were issues, just waive the late fees. Unfortunately, it affects us in this year, because it made it go negative. And it just kind of brought up a good discussion, kind of like we're reducing capital contributions. Why do we want to count on income that we may or may not have, that we're only guessing at? It's not offsetting the dues enough, it can only hurt us if we're wrong, so why count it, and anything extra we get is a focus of that point. And just helps that maybe offset.
I think it's reasonable to count some late fees as income.
Are we, when you think about
Oh, then we have
it,
to collect them. We actually have to collect it.
is there anything that's done that's being done about it this year? 'Cause I mean, there are quite a bit of delinquency as far as the due that are in arrears, that there's no late fees at all, so there's no penalty at all for anybody that's 5, 6, 7 months behind as of this year to date. I'm not even talking about last year, but as of this year, anybody that's 4 or 5 months behind, there's no late fees, no penalty for them to pay late. So if there's no late fees, then what's holding somebody accountable to even pay those dues until they go to sell the home? And then at that point, you know,
So do you
That's
want
what I
them
mean,
to
if
pick
it's-
the number and put something in there for the late fees?
I'm not, and that's, I was just gonna put it
Whatever we want. I think it was in the opinion of the committee is that if it's not reliable, and certainly if we're not gonna cover, assess it and collect it, it should be zero.
my more question is why we're gonna collect anything.
Yeah, I think that's a procedure and policy question more than a budget question.
I think also, well, correct me if I'm wrong, if someone does pay their late fee, $25 a month every month, and they make good is that money separated out from operational and put into another fund?
No, that'd be operational.
No, it goes by its operation, so we're gonna show a negative no matter what,
No,
if nothing goes to offset it.
no, it's just extra income, it wouldn't be negative.
Well, we're showing negative fees now.
Well, we should make the fees because of the accounting, I think they did it incorrectly, they should have moved it, they should call it bad debt and moved it, but that didn't happen.
I'm confused, are you collecting it or you're not, you're just not?
So
Right.
right now, we're showing negatives, you waived so many, there was a lot, there's tons, some people had hundreds, by the time I fixed their account in late fees. So by the time we waived all this in this year, it made us negative. So it doesn't matter, we're negative a few $1,000s, with all the stuff I waived, so. Because it was from either transition or issues with the people had paid, but it didn't put it on their ledger, so we had to go track it down. And so with all those late fees, that we had sending late letters, by the time I went through and we paused it, and I figured them out, it's hundreds of dollars that showed up on the ledger that we waived. So do we get charged for the fees themselves? $25 is an arbitrary charge that we're charging to hold people accountable. So it's negative because we reported that as income in the previous year, but now I'm saying, no, we're waiving it, so it has to show up as negative on the line, and it's just skewing this.
I would argue that, it can't show up negative, if you relieve it this year or last year, it should get late AR, look at that. But we shouldn't argue about the accounting. The argument should be assess them and should be collected.
So part of, I'll give some feedback there is sometimes, usually Castle was important or anybody else was not just arbitrarily going in. They would have to have board approval to waive a late fee. The board was trying to be cognizant of the fact that some of the late fees and issues on people's accounts were not their fault, but more of a transition fault. On top of that, what we found was every time Castle sent a letter for a late notice, we were getting charged. And I forget what it was somewhere between the $10 to $25 range. And so here we are getting charged from Castle to assess these late fees and then not collecting the late fees. And so we said, let's stop that nonsense. So that's why that ended up the way it was, is. Yeah.
Can I check real quick, can we take this late fee discussion offline and we'll pick a number we think is a fair number to include for next year? Because this year, I think we all, is a screwy year.
Listen, I don't care,
Yeah.
I'm just plugging in the numbers you guys want to plug in.
Well,
But I
let me
think
get,
it's a policy decision that has to be addressed, and we have to put it in the budget or leave it zero.
looking at this delinquent list, there's 9 major offenders, which is everything over 1,000, a total of about $39,000. 9 residences. I think we should go, get the other $100 guys, go after them with some kind of letter or something. That would be a big chunk to help in our budget, wouldn't it?
Jill, more questions?
I'm good on my end. I think if I get a copy of this and I go through the individual tabs, I'll be able to answer a lot of questions I
You have a copy.
have. Awesome.
You knew that, you were just
Yes,
testing.
yes, perfect.
Okay, so if the board doesn't have any more questions immediately, resident questions. So Mara, you had something about lighting?
Yeah, I just think that's part time. Times are tough for a lot of people, and we're spending that kind of money on.
Excuse me, could you tell me how much that number is, because I can't think
It says $15,000.
on Christmas lighting?
Yeah, and it was
Okay.
up this year.
Yes,
Like,
it goes
right now,
down.
like,
Oh, it was 14,000 last
But
year.
like,
and the
why?
new contract
Like,
is-
Why are we
Contract
putting
is-
on that many lights? Like, is that for people just love that? Is that
Yes.
like something
Yeah.
everybody
Yes.
does? Yeah. Everybody wants to pay for that?
Larry, what would $10,000, if you slash your $10,000, what would that mean to the bottom
I
line?
get that, but it's not gonna make
Is
that
that
much.
$2 a month,
I just think.
$1 a month,
Let's just find
50
out.
cents a month?
Can somebody write down 15,259?
Yeah.
Alright, so you wanna slash it to what?
Let's say you slash it to 5,000,
5,000,
you take out 10,000, what does that really mean?
so,
Is it worth the discussion?
you know, $2 a month.
I get that it's not gonna do anything, but if we have that kind of spending, maybe in other different things also, like, also that $15,000 we could use towards our playground.
It is kind of an all or nothing situation.
Yeah, there's
with the
gonna
holiday,
be a cost
like,
regardless. I
for
get that.
$5,000, you have a Grinch inflatable sign,
Yeah.
straight up lights, like you wouldn't have the holiday
I
lights.
forgot I had them do.
If you scroll up to just towards the top, and I think it's kind
You
of.
can't ask any questions, you've seen
I'm
all
not
of
gonna
that.
ask any questions.
Yeah.
It's just
Jason,
helpful to see.
Sure. I can't see who's over there raising their hand, but,
Jason,
oh, hey, Jason, I didn't see you, but you're just slouching. Your mother would be disappointed in your posture, sir.
Sorry. So, two quick questions. On your increase of the reserves, if you take out that 4818, so you, I'm just looking at the first line, right? So you would have an increase of roughly $39 a month on the rest of our expenses.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Tell me,
If you take out the 4818, you would have.
what 4818?
The increase in the reserve.
The increase of the reserve fund,
Oh, okay, if you're saying if we keep it at $100,000.
if you keep it at 100 instead of that, so you
I
would
can show you
increase.
exactly what that's gonna do. It's gonna take out the $48 a month,
Right, that's what I was asking, so
yeah.
that would be a $100,000 increase in reserve again.
no, that means it's not an increase, we've been funding it 100,000, we would continue to fund it 100,000.
Our reserves would go up $100,000.
No.
Yes, yes, the answer is
Well,
yes.
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 Not
So-
net. Not
The answer is yes.
If we took out that 48, so we have an increase of roughly $39 a month for all of our other expenses.
In this particular case, it's, as it
Yeah,
said, yes, 39, 30, $40, yeah, 37, 38, 39, yes.
So I did not really get to see a lot of that, so I'm hoping to see a printout.
Yeah, well, so what I wanted to do is present this.
Right.
If there were major changes, we go, hey, for sake of argument, let me get a minute. We don't want any holiday lighting next year. Zero that category out, then I can send the budget out with some decisions that have already been made, you can look at it. This was a fully funded, that's why I didn't send it out ahead of time. We wanted to get the feedback from the community, have the board make some decisions, and then feed it into the budget, then we can distribute, put the PDF out there.
I just think that one of the concerns that we built up in the community over the years is when we say, well, $15,000 is only gonna adjust it about $2 a month. Problem is, there's a lot of fluff in a lot of them that we're just used to paying, so we're like, oh, okay, so it's really not that big a deal if we cut $10,000 here or $10,000 there. That's how you get to a HOA of $400 a month.
Right.
So we do have to make some hard line decisions on saying $15,000 here, all right, there's $15,000 somewhere else, $10,000 to say that we're putting it in an all encompassing fund in case things happen. That just says, all right, well, then we have the room to spend the $10,000, we're trying to really cut. We have to make hard line decisions and say, we don't have $10,000 to put in that budget.
What if we charge our late fees, we collected late fees? I mean, I think that's absurd, doesn't anybody else think that's absurd? I think we should send them to collection.
Those are fees.
But if there's $39,000 outstanding, we have to let you know.
Well, that's
not late fee, that's just normal HOA.
Yeah.
You don't have to go there. Jason,
But can you explain that collecting that $39,000 does nothing, or does very minimal to the everyday expenses of our HOA? Right, so that
those, so any fees, this is not really my area, okay? But I'll explain it. Any fees that were supposed to be collected on are not, it's just gonna go into operating, it doesn't change the budget, because we're
That's
already.
what I just need you to explain.
We're,
I don't.
if we get $39,000, if we went out and suddenly everybody just wrote us a check, that's gonna go in our operating account. And it's money that we haven't spent over, that we accounted for in the past, right? So it's just gonna be making up the difference. We already assumed we were gonna get that money. This year, we're assuming that we're gonna get, well, whatever the dues are, right? Yeah, total revenues, minus what, so it's really these two numbers here, add these two together. I gotta change that back to 285. So these two numbers together make up your dues. We're assuming we're gonna get $1.9 million. If somebody doesn't, if we have, starting this year, we have $20,000 people to pay, it just means we collected that less and that much less, and we'll have to make it up somewhere there. We know that some of these things are gonna be a little less, some things will be a little more, and maybe we have the money and maybe we don't.
And I just wanted to point out, because I don't need to think that there's no penalties, one person's already at the attorney, one of them, that's one of the major ones, we're working on sending home, there's some extenuating circumstances there with developer and the CO, what they're being charged, and the other ones are on their way, so I just want to put that out there. This is a very skewed year, especially with a lot of negatives, we waived so many, and from the transition, it took a long time, we're still cleaning things up. But I don't want people to think that there's no penalty at all.
Okay. Well, it sounds like there's a penalty, but we can wait and see.
I mean, your late fees are gonna somewhat be offset by your legal expense on top of whatever fee CAP was gonna charge us for postal and doing their accounting.
Yeah, but by law, I think if we do go to the attorney, we can also get attorney's fees.
Yes,
We'll get attorney's fees without to get that.
I would argue that if they can't afford to pay $3,000, probably not gonna pay, work real hard to pay their.
Yeah.
We can try, but you know, from a practical point of view, if they can't afford to pay their dues, they're not gonna be able to afford the attorney fees.
alright, Joe, did you have a question, comment?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So, Larry, thanks.
Yes, sir.
You did a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work. But, so the question I have is it still using the assumptions for the roads, right? Because.
No, so what we did on the reserve is we dropped out, what do they call it, coding of the road. We learned that, you know, if you're not gonna do that initially, or you don't want to, but we did leave in, I think it's 60,000 per year for fixing. Or no, excuse me, 60,000 every 6 years for fixing potholes, patching, like, just stuff that you're gonna have to do. And then what we did was we split the bays. We had a quote, kind of I want to win your business at the right time quote of $1 million.
Right.
The reserve study based on their people around here said about 2 million. So talking to Donna Levengood, who's on our committee, who does a lot of this stuff for the Palm Beach County, she said, I would just split it and go there. We did not try to take into account Willis. There are places you could save money in that potentially.
Right, so show the tab, what's the number you gave for the roads? What was the number?
The number I used for roads was 1.5.
1.5.
Plus 60,000 every 6 years. I think every 6 years you do something.
Alright, so what would, putting that aside, what would affect the reserve number is what we end up doing with that 111 that's miscategorized. Because that would affect, that's not.
If it's real.
If it's real, so that's what I'm saying, so that is the number that we got to come get, because we need to include that in the reserve study. Right, but that
Well,
would change this number.
Only if we haven't used it for operating, right? So the only time I deal with funny money is when I play Monopoly right now. I mean, I don't wanna like pretend that we have 111,000 that nobody knows if it's really there. And given our operating, I mean, we've had a lot of operating problems in the past. We've taken loans. I suspect that money's not there.
So, can I
Is the money there?
chime in? So the real money that we have, when you look at the cash balances, those monies are, they're running balances where if we never coded anything against that account, it's gonna still show that we have 111, even though it went into the cash balances that may have been used that on a different reserve item or different operating expense. So the cash money, the cash in that reserve is that 600,000 number in August. That's what's truly 100% in that bank account right now. Same thing with operating. The other thing are numbers, and they feed in, you'll see it's offset by negatives. Their numbers on the page, and if we've never coded anything against it or made a board decision to put it into that account, it just sits there as numbers on the page. So I don't want, it's not that is it real or not real? It's numbers on the page unless we decide to code things against it and move it around.
But I also wanna say one more thing, because a lot of people get confused on this, and I do myself sometimes. Even if we took that 111,000, it's a one-time application. Does it make a difference? Certainly makes a difference. But because we put 111,000 and say, oh, we don't have to do 285, we can do 175. Next year, so I looked at the reserve study going out. They're recommending this year 285, and next year, or excuse me, in 2025, 285. The next year, 292, then 299, so they're going up about 7,000 a year after that, okay? 7,000 a year, once we get on the path, is not a big increase. 7,000 divided by 320 divided by 12 is what you're talking about, increase every year beyond that. But if you take 111,000 out now, you're gonna you're not putting in, you don't get your $10 money, so the number that you end up getting a recommendation to put in next year might be 300,000. So now you get your big jump. It's a one-time occurrence. It matters, but and you're not like, hallelujah, right?
You gotta remember, that's the starting number, that's the base number that we have to start with, because an increase is going to the 600 number, especially on the group B guy. They don't go down from there, they go up from there,
They do.
right?
Right. So, and we started with a balance of 650. I wasn't sure exactly what it was. At the end of the year, that number is gonna be another $35,000. So the numbers could be tweaked a little bit, but it's not enough to like gigantically matter. I think we could adjust this a little bit. And you can take some risks and say, boy, maybe we don't have to do some of these projects.
But we start the dynamic spreadsheet, you change that starting reserve number, let's just say you were to add that 100,000 to it, that should change the calculation.
Just for 1 year.
Right, there was a bigger.
So let me the spreadsheet, this spreadsheet is budget and stuff that enters into the budget. The reserve number is a single number. I have a separate spreadsheet that's very complicated that I don't even understand. I didn't put it together. That you can mess with the numbers and come up with different things and try to figure out. And I'm happy to share that with you if the board says okay and let you futz with it all day long. We futz with it so much that I got tired of futzing with it. We tried again. We went from 460 to 285, and that's a big jump, right? But I think it's pretty clear from this, and especially since what we talked about the last meeting. Our reserve has been underfunded for a long time. Had we started doing things a little bit earlier, we'd be asking for less. And that's okay. Maybe the decisions made then were perfectly fine. But today, the projection of the community, unless we want to start putting off stuff like, the security system, we push that stuff off and these numbers change. But if we think if it broke and we can't get in our community, then we're stuck. So some of you, one of you has, yes?
I've been out of it for a while. I've been like 2 seniors and I'm kind of shell shocked by these numbers. I love this board. I love what you all represent. I know that you get down and you're not afraid to crunch all your numbers. And that's why I fully support all of you. But I'm looking at these numbers and I know all around, everything has gone up. And I feel like I need you all to crunch your numbers again. And I feel like now is not the time. Nobody works harder than Danny. Nobody. But I feel like now's not the time to put $10,000 towards that when we're
$10,000 for what?
for social, maybe
So
we
just for
figure out
sake of argument,
something.
we can adjust all this stuff. I
But that's-
do a bunch.
That's like Jason is saying,
So
so
we can change the.
that, the holiday lighting, the here, that they are like, crunch the numbers, sharpen the pencil. Let's try to figure it all out, because $500 a month, we're knocking a lot of families out. I mean,
Let me go.
my insurance has gone up in my own house, my car insurance, my homeowner's insurance. I am not saying, hey, let me put a lot of money into my savings account in case some crap happens in my house, which is kind of what you're saying here.
No, that's not 100% true, so.
Kind of true.
No, we can't, we correct.
Kind of, because you're saying
No, hold on, so.
our
the first thing was-
roads could break down one day, we need to put money away, we need to
So
save money.
here's the difference, okay, and I want to go back to a statement I made in the first presentation. Little to no efforts have been made to reduce spending. We wanted to start with and present a reasonable, fully funded budget as a starting point, right? So there are places that can be reduced. but
Right, we're talking about hiring another person, why do we need another part-time person?
okay, these are separate questions, but I want to address your reserve comments and say, okay, if we don't,
It was all one big comment
I understand, but I-
about the money that we're spending, I'm just watching all of the money that we're spending, and I'm saying, just as a homeowner, where we can save the money. And why do we need a
I
part-time
think what Larry's
person?
trying to say, this is set in stone,
Right.
this is just numbers.
Yeah, this is.
Right, and I'm following like what Jason was saying is all of the budgetary items where
You say focus on necessities and get rid of the fluff, is that what you're saying?
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, let's compare it to.
Cause I'm shut off right now, $500 is making me wanna
Right,
faint off the floor.
But you weren't here in the beginning, but this is where it's coming from the finance committee, this is then presenting all in budgets.
Right, I heard it at the last meeting as well, and I was hoping it was different at this meeting.
it is different, it came down from $100,000.
I have a question about the emergency disaster fund. What does our insurance cover? Like if we had a hurricane come through and we took out 20 trees, is that what we're using to pay our deductible with? Or
If it's named storm, it's gonna be a percentage.
It's gonna be
Usually
Yeah, but that's what
it's
that's for, that's a separate item for.
not named storm, it's gonna be a deductible, and they're telling me that the deductible is 25,000.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere around there, it's much smaller, if it's not named storm, if it's named storm, it's a percentage, and that's not.
They ain't
yeah.
never-
Yeah.
I mean, much of the difference. But I just don't understand where that came from, where that money used to come from. You know what I mean? Like,
We never had.
We never, well, where would we get our money for our deductible? We had an
I think that's the point, is that you don't have, I can't address what happened in the past.
No, okay, so we've never ever budgeted.
No, we haven't.
For, we've never budgeted for.
Just took it from
We
general fund.
True, so what would happen, like for this storm, for instance, we had a couple trees go down. We were lucky, it was a few trees on Silver Wolf, there's one on the lake. We were able to put it under the tree removal replacement budget. We'd find another place to put it, unless we had a catastrophe where a roof came in or was lots of trees, like one of those tornadoes had come through, we'd be looking at like you say, a special assessment. If it was a tornado type event for all of our trees, street trees, let's say on the street going down, we'd be looking possibly at an assessment, and it would be an emergency. So that's the benefit of trying to set something up, is building up a fund for that, so we don't have to do things like that. And again, it's proposed, it's just something, we haven't had it before, we've been okay before, luckily, but it's building those contingencies, so we don't have to have these increases over and over and over again, have to assess for things.
I want to revisit the.
Yeah, Jason, one thing out of Jason.
So your 285 number on your reserve. That's based on how many years of.
30. It's a 30-year reserve spending. You redo it every 3 years. So what they do is they have this complicated spreadsheet that you plug in different categories, and there's 50 or 60 some items of things that can go wrong, or need maintenance or replacement. And they say, what's the useful life of that item? When it's new, how long is it gonna last? And then using cost items for those, or cost estimates, they can project, and I think they do it annually, that they could probably do it over time, but it'd be much more complicated. So what you do is say, in 2025, you guys want to spend this. You got this much in your reserve. If you add this number plus some investment income, what's the percentage of what you need versus what you have? And then you do that, add and subtract, and then the next year, you do the same thing. And every year, some things break, some things get saved for, and it, goes back and forth. And then for instance, when we redo the roads, you got $3 or $4 million in there, and that number comes way down, like, oh, we have no money, but you know what, we don't need that much money, because we just spent it, we need that much money in another 30 years. So and then they take into account inflation. So it's a guess, but it's a reasoned projected guess as to how we're gonna end up with the funds that we need. If you end up pushing projects off, like we don't do the gym, we don't do the playground, we don't do the security system, those are like the three we've been talking about, then you don't need quite as much.
Or, so are we saying that we need $285,000 a year for 30 years?
No, we need 280, what they're saying is based
Or a
on,
slight increase on, so the 285 is a slight increase?
yes, we've been doing 100. Which, when I moved in here, I'm like, really, that seems awful low.
The recommendation from the old reserve is 175. And it wasn't.
Question.
So
You can clearly understand it's really low.
that was.
Okay, I understand.
Just big inflation jumps.
But I'm just trying to wrap my head around, so that 285 is a slowly increasing number for the next 30 years?
Yes.
Doesn't flatten. But, and that's the big, and remember, that's a conservative number as far as the percentage funding of the reserve, because the reserve studies do a percentage funding. Now, how much percentage are you funding for future expenses?
What they tried to tie in, and I watched them do this, because I really didn't understand what was happening, so I spent a lot of time on the phone watching them figure all this out. And they're looking to get the funding need, where you get between 70 and 90% of what you need, because some stuff's not gonna happen, some stuff's gonna have longer life, and they never wanted to go below 10%. Right, so when you do a big expense, it'll drop, but if it goes below 10%, then you start running risk. And so, can we put in less? Sure, but if let's say we decide we're gonna do 100,000, just like we've been doing, then what basically you're gonna rerun those numbers and you're gonna say, okay, well, next year, instead of the 292 recommended, now we probably need 350 or 400 or something. So those numbers could just jack up. All you're doing is kicking the can down the road. And part of, I mean, I didn't really want to just be a rehash of the reserve study, but the reserve study is our savings account. And the only way that we can get money to spend on projects is either through operating, which you really shouldn't, but you can, and that means you jacking dues to get operating. You can borrow the money, but to pay it back and pay the interest, you're jacking dues. You can do an assessment. Well, jacking, I hate picking you, but you brought it up, right? If this is a problem, when somebody comes and says, okay, hey, we haven't been saving, the roads need to be replaced, and it's $10,000, write a check, right? And I think we have to run that through a vote. Who's going to vote for that? And now suddenly nobody wants to live in Highland Reserve because you got potholes all over. So this is a trade-off between the things we need, the things we want, and what we can afford. And so that's really all we've been doing. And in the past, I think we have tended to try to keep the dues low. And what we're doing now is saying, okay, here's the reality today. So we can choose to deal with it, or we choose to kick the can down. Or we can partially kick the can down.
Yeah, but it's like you're trying to.
I'm not trying to do anything. The numbers don't lie. It's not me.
What is in that?
Not you general, we are trying
We
to
should-
fund, we are trying to fund it all tomorrow.
No, we're not. No, nowhere close to this. No, what we're trying to do is catch up to where we ought to have been and then begin to fund it. This doesn't anywhere, I mean, it's gonna take several years before we start to catch up.
There,
What's in that bucket that they say we need $9.5 million?
I don't think I said 9.5 over 30 years, but.
$300,000 a year for 30
So you were
years.
here last time we had a meeting, right?
I was, but I don't know, I don't think it was discussed other than road.
Well, the reserve study, rather than go through the reserve study posted on the website and take a look at it, there's 60 some items. I went through a bunch of examples last time. Roads is a huge one, but it's, it's the roof here, it's remodeling this, it's buying new furniture, it's replacing the pool pumps, it's recovering the tennis court, it's the fencing. Everything, it's fence, the playground, the gym, the curbs, the swales, the lift station, they're not gonna go on and on, but there's a lot of things that we are going to be doing.
What is the spending on
Especially, all right, yes.
$8 million.
But that's.
And 30 years. guys.
Yeah, so here, just to say, Larry had a printout. Larry had a printout of the reserve study. Now, this is projected, right? It doesn't mean we have to spend it. It means we could, you might disagree with something, but this was our best guess. So for the year 2025, we're talking about some painting on the clubhouse, fitness equipment replacement of just one item. Replacing the playground, doing some patch and sealing on, our patching of, they had the word wrong there, patching of the roads around here, because we've got a bunch of, sunken places on Smallville that need to be done. A little bit of patching in here, 2026, more fitness equipment replacement, but one item. Security system update in 2026 of $381,000. Doing the rest of the clubhouse fitness equipment in 2027. Refurbing the pool pavilion out there, irrigation pumps, which they said will probably need to spend about $100,000 in the next couple of years. And if we don't have irrigation, we all know what's gonna happen there, so. And keep in mind, we have $650,000 in there, but when you start talking 100 here, 300, 400 there, I mean, that money goes pretty fast, and if you don't start to replace it, then you're really talking, some future budget chair is gonna say to you, well, you know, we're gonna jack the D 2000 because we haven't been doing it. So there's all these things, you know, it just projects out, and if something has a 6-year life, what they're saying is you replace it in 2026, and then you replace it again in 2032. So they're all guesses, but they're based upon the reserve study company general lifespan. We could say, you know what, the pool equipment out there is moldy and some of it's broken or the furniture, but we're just gonna power wash it and replace a couple things and throw some chairs out, and that's good enough. And that's fine. That's a decision we make, but if you wanna keep the place nice, when someone comes into my house, it's a clubhouse, like, I don't want to here. So part of it's your property. Yes, I was really trying hard not to go into the reserve study conversation. I'm gonna try really hard.
As Larry's pointing out, the study is a suggestion, an educated suggestion of what money we need, the things that need to be done between now and the next 5 to 10 years. The budget is also a guideline. And I'm just looking at this budget, I'm saying to myself, we're not living within our budget. We're just going out, no matter what it costs, we're just spending it. There's really no accountability, like, wait a minute, we're out of money, we can't do that anymore. We're spending it and getting negative. So you could go to the budget and go through some of these items and say, hey, this is what we do. We're gonna cut here, we're gonna cut here, we're gonna cut here, and we're gonna live within the budget. And after that, the things that we don't need, we don't get. We put it off to the next year or something like that nature. I have 10 different categories, but you can do that too. So, if there's ways of working to the budget to get it down, but we have to live with the consequences. If we don't want $15,000 of lighting, it's only 10,000. You know, if we social events wants 10,000, you only get 5. You get 5. Okay, landscaping extras, the flowers that are out there, which is like about 10 grand, you put in whatever. Okay, we only spend 5, and we live by that budget. I just don't think we live by a budget. We just seem to, and we end up with the figure. Well, actually today, oh my God, we're over. Then because we're over, then we project what next year is going to take care of the overage, other than looking the other way. So I like to focus on that too. You know, I mean, there is funds and things like that, but you have to live with the consequences.
So what I did is I went here in 3 columns, because I think it just complicated the initial time. So what this is, like, column D is not terribly useful in this conversation, but that's cost per month of 2024. Then you got the 20 through August, you have the 2024 actual numbers on the budget. That took a long time to plug in. And then it's simply a pro rata projection. Okay, we just took the number divided by 8 times 12, and you get projected. So that assumes that you're spending the same every month. If there's if a particular thing we only pay for in February and July, it's going to look like we pay throughout the year, and we may not pay anything. Likewise, if we have a big expense in December, it's probably not reflected, but it's just a very simple projection to how we're getting there. And you notice the late fees, right? That's where I started, like, how do we have $3,650 negative income on late fees? And it's only because in my opinion, the financials are not handled right when we flip through on at least that. So there's the numbers, we can scroll down and take a look at what we got. To Michael's point, in terms of living within budget, yeah, you should. I think budgets are guided. So you say, some things are gonna be a little less, some things are gonna be a little more. You're just guessing. You can't, I mean, in your family, sometimes you have to borrow money from your family, sometimes you take a loan, sometimes you go without. And we can make those decisions collectively as a community. Yes, Jason?
I agree with what you're saying, and I appreciate all of that collection, but I more agree with what Mike's saying is, we're accustomed to overpaying for a lot of things. We need to go in, and this is not what we're asking you to do. I think we're asking the board to do it and say, there's no reason we should be spending this money on this item. It's not what we can be spending our money on right now. When I'm at home and my kids wanna buy, they go into, a watch store, and they want 10 watches, well, you can wear one watch at a time. I can pay for 10, I get it, but you can only wear one at a time, so let's pick one. I think that's what we need to do, is make a harder decision on, we've been overspending. Because right now, you're showing me that we have an 11% increase on our basic expenses. And we can talk inflation all we want, inflation was not 11%. So,
But you can argue all the numbers, keep in mind, the budget was under budgeted last year in some places where if you went to like the cable, if you went to the contract and you did the math, then the budget number was low. The budgeted number for BOD was low. That's just a mistake, it happens, right? So that's some of it. But I mean, I would like pick an area that you think, and then I think that's worthwhile. You think we can pay.
that's why I said I didn't see the list, so I can't tell you.
Here it is.
I can't, okay, but I can't see that.
Oh, well,
So
there's a
that's
chair
fine.
right here. I mean, or you can come over here. I mean, I'm just saying, if you
Okay.
have an area, we'll.
Wait, how long did you, I mean, I don't wanna get into this, but how long did you have to look at it? You're asking me to look at it immediately and say, okay, that seems to be.
It's a lot of time, but that's what I'm saying, is the reason I didn't print it out and bring it, or send it out to people, so we could go live. So if somebody says, we don't think we should spend $15,000 on lighting, I can zero that out, so we can see what the impact is. And then we can zero out this and zero out that, or cut that in half, if we think it's realistic. What we don't wanna do, I don't think it's smart, is to say, hey, I think we can spend $3,000 when everybody knows it costs $5,000. So that's just.
And I think part of Larry's point too is if you look through the budget, which the proposed will be distributed after this so that you can, and then submit that feedback, because if there's something on here that you feel is frivolous spending, Maria might come back and be like, holiday lighting should be 0, because ultimately it's either gonna be 0 or it's gonna be 15. That just is what it is. Because why do it if you're not gonna do it? So if you look through this after this meeting and you see things that are frivolous, or you've got connections to say, hey, we budgeted X amount for a pool contract, well, I know a guy and I'm gonna get a quote for you guys and here's what they can do. Please do that. I think as someone who's been on the board since 21, there are certain things that are definitely fat that can be trimmed, such as social committees, such as holiday lighting, things like that. But a lot of this is bare bones, like a lot of this is the basic services. Now you can decide whether, the pressure cleaning, we just say, take the 9,000 out, we're just not gonna have pressure cleaning, or the lawn, we're gonna go from 40 cuts a year to 20 cuts a year. Like, those are decisions that can be made. And I think you're gonna have varying degrees of opinions throughout the community as to what they feel is frivolous, versus what they feel is required. And there are bylaws in the declaration where there are certain things that have to be done. But that's, I think, what Larry is asking everyone here and in the community after this meeting is to look at this. And if you guys see areas where you're like, wow, the math doesn't add up, or wow, the social committee's dumb, or wow, landscaping's crazy, please give that feedback, because because we don't, nobody in this room wants to pay more than what we're already paying.
So the security thing, that may or may not.
Which one?
The
65,000?
65,000, what are we talking about for another one?
So, and I did remember this is all over what I sheet, so we originally were talking about doing that this year, and then we thought, well, that's gonna be very unrealistic. Especially before we figure out how to start refill the reserve fund. So then I erroneously thought we were gonna do it next year, well, we actually had it in the reserve study of 2026 to replace that, which means we live with it there for a while. My point on that was when we replace that, that new contract is gonna say something about monthly maintenance or annual maintenance is gonna be different than that. And I believe it was coming way, the annual was coming way down. Like instead of, I don't know, do you remember what the
It was
number was?
30-something, 33 again, something.
34,
34.
somewhere on there, yeah.
I think it was 34.
It was like half.
Yeah, so half of that cost would go away, so that's 34, that's real money, right?
And
If you.
this playground people are talking about, where's that at?
So the playground and that, those are all money that come out of the reserve. So we have the money to spend today, but if you spend it without a plan to replenish it, and to save for the other things, then yeah.
We'll just end up with another one of these.
Or
It's gonna be worse. It's just gonna be.
do we have to have one? Is that something?
Yeah, we do have it for the declaration, we do have,
Good, yeah.
our amenities, the playground is listed, the pool is listed, and the fitness center are listed, that they must be operational. It doesn't say they have to be optimally operational, but they have to be operational. The playground is not currently operational, it's listed as an amenity, we are currently not in compliance with that.
What are those rocks? I haven't designed what the ball playground is.
Don't open that can right now.
It's been a lot of work.
There's a lot of work done, there's some really great options, but I personally have asked that we table that conversation until we have a budget approved, because that is not gonna be its own line item on the budget. Ultimately, it comes out of whatever the reserves are, and kind of what Larry's saying is, we have reserve funds, we have like $630, $630,000 in cash in that account, right? And so, you know, per the reserve study, it says we're at our end of useful life, and whether to replace that or do something new is $50,000 or $100,000, the money is there to do it. But we have to have a plan to repay it or to replenish it, because if we take those money out and then we have a sinkhole on Swallowtail, that's where you come into an issue.
We have some.
Not that I shouldn't have said, I'm sorry.
Do that.
Sorry, Scott.
Just an example.
Just an example.
I mean, I listen, these numbers, for sure.
I'm just- I mean, it doesn't seem like there's many places to take away from.
That's,
What do
that's
we
our
start this? Yeah, if I plug in 460.
Like, we're all supposed to play around.
Just for fun, right? Just for fun.
I mean, that's the only number, we should play around with that.
Which is the first reserve study we got before we started getting. Here was what the dues were. Right? So
Well,
we,
and-
that was, I mean, I was shocked by that.
Right, well, yeah, but I mean, I think if as a community, we approve, you know, whatever, give our feedback and then you guys vote on it, whatever, we need a commitment from you guys that we're gonna, like you were saying, like, we have to look back and not just spend 15 grand on lights that are pretty, you know, like, we gotta try to
Also,
look
as a
back
community,
and manage this account.
we can do a lot of self-help, and I see people out here doing it all the
I
time.
understand it's ever changing, people
Like-
coming off the board and things
Like
like that.
office
but
expense,
it's a lot of
look at office
money.
expense, we spend a lot of money in maintenance. Because we send, correctly from one recording, when we send documents to a company, and they charge us to send this out over and above, is that correct?
Yeah.
Can't we do that?
Yeah, why?
Can you get a committee together of 5 people, and come in this room, put stamps on envelopes, and make copies here and send it out? Now, it's only a few $500-600 or so, but not $10,000. That's only one little small example.
But all the stuff.
You can do that. People can walk out of their front yard, if, on the sidewalk, especially in Swallowtail, if the limbs hanging down a little bit, trim the freaking one out. Why do we have to spend $35,000 or something going on? Look, some things we can do ourselves, but I don't see the majority of people other than this room who are willing to do that. But we can help ourselves, I don't see it.
That's
I,
why
I do wanna make sure I point out,
Your
The
dues are gonna
biggest-
go up for this.
the biggest part of this increase, we can work on the operating budget, but the biggest part of this increase is getting our reserve back. Right, that's $48 every monthly right there, that's the biggest part of it. We can save some money, and there are places, I can tell you right away, you could drop the emergency disaster fund, that's 11.5, you could drop the complete social budget, you could drop the lighting, you can do all those things, there's probably a few thousand here or there that you can do, and I'm not discounting a few thousand here or there, but it's not gonna make a big lion's share of the effort.
Maybe like $8 a month.
It's something, but I can show that, but it does add up over time, but it also is the community, so we have to decide, do we like, I mean, I think it's cool when you're driving down the road and you see those communities that have all those lights along the fence. Do I want that light? I don't care, but if we don't have them, and somebody's expecting them, and they move in here, so these are all trade-offs that we have to make. This is, but the thing is, this is the reality that we start with, and then we move and try to figure out, make it tough, but don't forget, the biggest part of it is the reserve.
Like, is there a way to change the bylaws and be like, we no longer wanna have
It's
this?
a big vote.
Yeah.
We don't need a quorum for elections, how are we gonna change that?
I don't know, if it was gonna keep me from having this, I mean, I just feel like it's.
But you're not getting commission.
I'm just saying, I,
Your value.
no, I'm just saying in general, the game sucks, we all know that.
We're not gonna get the price of the
Tennis courts, let's get rid of it.
We wanna get rid of it though, if that's what people are paying top dollar.
There's no one else to say.
They do, they do, you
Well,
gotta come to the other meeting.
And
That's
all
an
you- all
It's
you
an
have to do
unfair
is-
thing to say to your neighbor right there.
See what they're doing. It's a low price.
I don't know, but I go
Right.
to the it looks nice.
Just a couple of things.
Tennis courts up there maintained, the gyms
So
are
we get 3 months.
Because they pay more money.
3 months, then we get pretty slack. Some of this.
It's a Florida statute, you
Okay,
can't
so
charge
that's
more than
great.
that.
My other question with reserve money, is that just sitting in an interest bearing savings account or can that be invested?
Investment.
It's invested.
It
is
It's not- it's not-
It's got interest, I mean, it's.
Recommendation for what you can do, we have shared responsibility, we can't just take community's money, we can't put it in stocks.
So it's like the money.
You can do money market, you can do high yield savings,
You do
accounts,
savings.
you can do
I
savings.
understand, that's always been my biggest complaint. We're not receiving anywhere near the ongoing money market rates. Ongoing money market rates right now are at 4.5, but we're getting 2.
Schwab is 5.25.
What are we getting? And here's my other concern. Why can we not get a clear answer on what accounts are where and what? I've been asking for that for a long time. I've sat on many boards as president, vice president, treasurer. I've never sat on a board where we don't know where all the money is. That's not good. Right? I think we got that, we gotta spend, if you want my help, I'll help you, but we gotta figure that out. We gotta know where our money is. First of all, we got 111,000, we don't even know if it exists in the right account.
Do you guys mind if maybe me, Larry, and Joe all sit down one day?
Hey, don't be volunteering my life.
Sorry.
Okay.
You have to be involved with it with me, Larry.
I'm sure my wife has things for me to do, right? I can do it.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
No, I mean, I think, these are all valid points, I think that's why this specific board really entrusts the committees, because there's a lot of work and hours that go on behind the scenes from the board's perspective on top of the committees, and so if the finance committee, if that's something they're able to look into, is money market accounts, high yield savings accounts with the option, that's awesome. I know budget has a timeline constraint that some of those other things don't. So if there's a subcommittee that can work on the bank situation and the account situation,
Well, I understand.
Joe, I have the name of the lady that we would call to deal with that, I just ran out of time to deal with that problem.
And Tony was also asked, we looked at some bank statements the other day, looked at the interest rate, I can't say offhand, me and him are looking at it, it is, it's a lower percentage, and it's not optimal. So I know that was a project you wanted to take on too, so maybe you could be involved with that subcommittee.
We weren't getting enough on
Are there other options of the security at $64,000 a year? Not spending the upgrade on that, like, is there an in between? Why are we paying her $64,000 a year for contract? Like, there's other, we're saying we can't make tough decisions, those are tough decisions.
But to get out of that decision, you have to spend. $300,000 to $400,000, which then reduces that cost, but you have to have a plan to replace that.
You don't have to spend $350,000, that's one security option. And I'm not saying that that's the security option that we have to go to or not go to, but is there an option in between? Because we've been spending it and we've been arguing it for 2 years. There's a lot of things that we've been spending and arguing for 2 years, and all we keep saying is we're gonna get to it, and we're gonna get to it, but we get accustomed to paying it. And that's why the HOA keeps going up, and our home values go down when our HOA values go up. Because people need to be able to spend a certain amount of money on a home, and if they're spending it on an HOA, they can spend less on a home.
But if your reserves are not good enough, nobody wants to buy there.
Which is why our homes have not appreciated to the value of the homes in the rest of the area.
Like,
But I agree with that.
for example, I bet you can go to Hammond Creek, their HOA is much higher than ours. And
Their monthly fees are not,
But they don't get.
their HOAs are not, I don't think they, in fact, I don't know the outside of it.
Is it with the trade?
I think there's one community that has a higher HOA that does not have golf course.
Yeah, you know, so one, that you, I think you bring up a really good point, already. I thought of it. So one way we could reduce HOA fees is we could get rid of, we can't do it for a while, or we have to figure out how we to get out of it, but we could get rid of cable and internet, and everybody could do their own thing. But your overall house costs would go up, but we could reduce our fees by a whole lot. That's a big chunk. What is it per home? Let's see.
Yeah, when you're comparing those fees in the other communities, most of them are not including the same level. of amenities.
So that is $89 per home per month. $89 for internet and cable.
It's gonna be one.
And you're gonna pay more. But we could get rid of it if our goal is to reduce HOA fees. That's a great way to do it. Poof.
Our goal is to our household.
There's fees on the level.
No, but that's kind of my point. Those are hard questions that people have to make. Because, okay, some people don't wanna pay for it. And they'll scream because that's the only thing they can afford at the moment.
What year?
So that's what we have to do, is saying that there are hard decisions to make. And I'm not asking Larry to make them.
Good.
I'm saying that somebody has to make them, and
But we did, we made that decision last year. I spent an awful lot of time putting together a presentation, and we decided to stay with that, which is fine. It was hard, but we made it last year, and we made it for.
but you just brought up cable. So I'm saying that there's $380 worth of expenses in there that somebody's gotta make a hard decision.
Where'd you get $380?
That's what we pay once month, you want it.
Well, there's some
We say 387.
Okay, got it, okay, thanks.
So I'm just, you're picking cable, I'm just saying you can pick any one thing. But eventually somebody's gotta make a hard decision and say, that's not what we can pay as a community, or we can.
Again, the biggest thing is the reserve contribution. That's the biggest increase. You could go through line by line and see where the other, like, next largest increases are. And see if there's any trim we could get there. But you just have to think, like, how much is it gonna cost you to cut your own line? You know, if you're paying somebody to cut your line, how much is it gonna be for cable and internet, if you choose to do so? I would say most lawns are at least gonna be between 150 and 200, like minimum, you know, per house here.
Well, maybe
Plus-
50.
Plus 170 for cable and internet, like, there you
And if you go into individual cutting, that's gonna change the look.
go. Yeah. Right.
For my community, I don't mind with my own webcam. I go out, I turn on the sprinkler, I don't have close view, I check my heads, I figure something. Like,
Well, can you cut that, go back up to the 285
Yeah.
and just cut that in half and see what it does, just out of curiosity.
46,000, so this is
24 hours, we say 24 hours a month.
100,000.
Do this more easily. Because you might wanna have to cut it in different chunks. Okay,
And then our, you know, just-
What's the figure? What the contribution?
I'm just looking for.
it's $27.11, $11 and 11.07 increase per. Because right now, we're contributing 100,000, so you're saying, you're basically saying, give me just an extra 40.
Yeah.
But in order to do that properly, to change that number, we really ought to try to plug it back in the formula and see what the risks are. But you have the ability to do it, we just kept it flat over inflation over a long period of time. And that's really.
Well, I just
why-
think, aside from the people sitting in this room, when this goes out and other people start talking about it and looking at it, it's a number that people are gonna get. You know, people are gonna. Yeah.
I'm gonna put extra cameras in my home just to
People are not gonna like
keep
it.
people from toilet paper in my house.
They won't do it, it's expensive.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think for the sake of time, I think it's fair, unless someone else has a genius idea we haven't thought of that's in this room, I think it's fair to have Larry circulate a PDF copy of this to the website. The board go through and see where we feel based on the feedback and discussions here, you know, you can sharpen the pencil. If you guys take these home, or someone who's not here tonight takes a look at this at home and has feedback, please send it to the board, to Courtney. If, you don't have our information, Courtney can circulate it to the board. Next Tuesday is the 5th, is the meeting for us
Election day.
to approve the budget.
Are you guys
So
gonna talk about that management thing now? Or-
that's gonna be after, when we get to the next agenda item, so, which will have impact on this too, that discussion. So if, unless there's any earth-shattering feedback at this point in time, let's close the budget part of the meeting and move on.
Nice second, man.
Thank you to the committee for all your
Yes,
hard
thank you,
work.
thank you,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you very much.
And to Donna and Tony, those who are not here.
Donna's here.
Done.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm sorry, I'm not in.
Okay, and remember what Larry said, this is not the final version of the budget. So please speak up and give input.
But please be specific, like just say, I think we should cut expenses, it's not enough. Like say, I think we don't need that, or I know a contractor can do this, or I don't think we should spend anything on that, you know,
Hey, Larry, you gonna upload the updated reserve study too?
it's already out there.
Is it up there, new one?
Right, Courtney?
What?
The updated reserve studies out there?
Yeah, the 5th of January, you're gonna talk about it tomorrow.
Okay, so, that's closed.
All right, now we're gonna move on to old business and the land contract review.
Do you mind going into the Zoom and turning off the recording? Since the management contract is considered personnel discussion, we don't need that recording.
Watch one.
I'm trying to find the Zoom controls.
There you go, up at the top, there you go. They're up.